if you bought a PS5, you bought it for God of War, you bought it for Horizon Zero Dawn, you bought it for Uncharted. What's up, everybody? I hope you're having a fantastic day. So RIP to Jerry Springer, once a promising politician, but I really think he found his calling on the Jerry Springer Show. I'm sending out thoughts and prayers to his family and condolences. But also, RIP to anyone who invested in Activision stock thinking that it was going to go up after the deal. It was a gamble, and I feel for you. So, as we know, the CMA blocked the deal between Microsoft and Activision, and there are some that are disappointed and some who are celebrating this decision. So what I wanted to do was go over what the CMA actually said and what were their reasons for blocking the acquisition. And next, I wanted to go into the ones who are celebrating the decision of the CMA and why it is that they are. And lastly, I want to go into how I feel about the acquisition and how I feel about the CMA response. But before we get into that, we finally pushed through the 400 sub mark. We really appreciate everyone and their support, and we're making a hard push to get to 1,000 subs before the year's up. So if you're watching and you haven't subscribed yet, we really appreciate if you did. Thank you. So I have all this pulled up. Let's take a look, then we'll talk after. So we're going to be looking at gov.uk, Microsoft Activision deal prevented to protect innovation and choice in cloud gaming. So I have a bunch of highlights. We're going to take a look at them, and then I'll explain how I feel about why they made the decision that they did. Okay. Microsoft has a strong position in cloud gaming services, and the evidence available to the CMA showed that Microsoft would find it commercially beneficial to make Activision's games exclusive to its own cloud gaming service. This is 100% true. I know that they made a deal with Sony that Call of Duty would be on there for the next 10 years. I truly believe that after that 10 years, they would definitely make Call of Duty exclusive. And that's not to say the other IPs that Activision has. I believe they would have made those exclusives on the outset. Microsoft already accounts for an estimated 60 to 70% of global cloud gaming services and has other important strengths in cloud gaming, from owning Xbox, the leading PC operating system, Windows, and global cloud computing infrastructure, Azure, and Xbox Cloud Gaming. This is true. They've been working on that infrastructure for such a long time. So obviously, they're trying to build their Xbox Game Pass library. The deal would reinforce Microsoft's advantage in the market by giving it control over important gaming content such as Call of Duty, Overwatch, and World of Warcraft. The evidence available to the CMA indicates that, absent the merger, Activision would start providing games via cloud platforms in the foreseeable future. This is true, and with Sony working really hard to establish themselves in this space, without the acquisition, Activision would obviously want to have their games on, as many platforms as possible to maximize profits, right? So ultimately, what the CMA is saying is that Xbox could become a threat, a monopoly, if they were allowed to acquire Activision in the cloud gaming space, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to move on to what the people who agree with the CMA putting the kibosh on the acquisition. Microsoft consolidating the video game industry is bad for everyone, and I'm fairly sure that everyone who disagrees or agrees with this decision has some. This article speaks to why they agree with the decision of the CMA. So after the acquisition, that negotiation looks entirely different, if it even exists at all. As the owner of Call of Duty, Microsoft can tell Sony to screw off, keeping one of the industry's biggest franchises exclusive to Xbox platforms. And that was a big argument that I saw over and over again, is that, well, one, Microsoft shouldn't be allowed to buy a publisher. They are buying their IPs, but buying IPs that are available on multiple platforms, right? And that's the first part. Secondly, making them exclusive to Xbox. They believe that Xbox is which I agree to an extent, has the potential to be a problem in the gaming space because of their immense resources. So if we take a step back, we'll see that Sony has is worth about $115 billion, right? And if you take 10 more steps back, you will see that Microsoft is worth about $2 trillion. So there's a lot you can do with that kind of money at your disposal, and they're afraid that buying Activision is the first step into Microsoft, really taking over the gaming space and not creating original IPs, but buying already popular ones. And I can agree with that to some extent. There's no guarantee that they will actually do that. And that's where we run into issues. I don't believe that Microsoft would do that, right? The potential is there, but I don't believe that they would take those steps. And you run into the problem where just because Microsoft is so good at what they do, they're worth $2 trillion. Should that exclude them from participating in buying, studios and, publishers, right? I don't agree. I agree with it about 20-30%. The other 70%, I think, if they have the resources to do it, why not let them, until it turns into an issue where they actually are becoming a monopoly, gobbling up way more studios than anyone else could, leaving everyone else with, little to nothing, right? I don't think they would necessarily do that. But with this next article we're going to be looking at, I believe that Microsoft and Sony are on two different paths right now. This is from Forbes, and this written by Paul Tassi. It's 32 million PS5 sales to how many Xbox sales exactly? And I think this explains exactly the plan that Xbox is using, right? The failure to report unit sales has continued into this current generation, where Microsoft is more likely to report Xbox Game Pass subscriber numbers instead, which it views as just as valuable, if not more so, than actual console sales. And I think this kind of feeds into Xbox really going towards the cloud gaming. They've been building this infrastructure for a really long time. I believe that they saw that, with the lost lead strategy that is, prominent in the gaming space, why not just sell Game Pass? I believe in the next couple generations, Xbox won't be selling any consoles. They'll sell you a piece of hardware that connects into your TV or monitor or PC or whatever that has Xbox Game Pass on it. I believe they're going to get out of the console market altogether eventually. While Sony is trying to break into the cloud gaming market, their consoles are immensely popular. I would go as far as to say the most popular. And this year, I believe that they might break the record that they hold right now of the most consoles sold. So while Sony continues in the console market, Xbox is going a totally different route. And I don't believe that that's going to have an effect as a whole on the gaming space. But I understand where people are coming from. But I wanted to take a look at some of the one in particular, the comment that I got on one of my videos about the hypocrisy of Sony buying a studio after railing so hard against Xbox for trying to acquire Activision. Okay, so I know you guys can't see that very well, but I'm going to read through it really quick and respond. How do you compare the acquisition of Microsoft trying to acquire Activision, who are a whole entire publisher? And, let's be real, they're not, acquiring them for their publisher part of it or distributor part of it. They're solely buying them because of their intellectual properties for the games that they have, so they can put them on Game Pass. So I disregard that just because they're not going to be using them for that part of the business that they do. Let's break this down because obviously there's a strong disconnect here. ABK is a third-party multi-platform publisher that currently has established IP on Sony's system. And I think that's a big one of the arguments that people that agree with the CMA have, is that these IPs are established on Sony systems as well. Microsoft are buying these multi-platform publishers and permanently removing those established. We don't know that for sure, but we kind of do. Multi-plat IP completely off Sony's system, to which they sell best, because Microsoft are too lazy and incompetent to make their own successful IP, in addition to them killing their own IP. So the way they compete is to buy those publishers and force them not to release any more of these established IP onto Sony's system, rather than that publisher choosing to do that at their own volition. And that was another point, was to keep Activision, especially, let's say they decide to drop the acquisition. What's to stop Activision from then becoming a second party publisher, or developer publisher for Xbox? What if they choose on their own volition to just make Xbox exclusives? What then? But they are in the business of making money. But Sony has those kinds of deals with studios also. So I mean, what if Activision decided to do that? Then what? This is not the same as, say, Tencent buying that publisher, because Tencent doesn't have a dog in the race. Therefore, those established multi-plat stay multi-platform. What game has Firewalk released on Xbox? And that was in the video. I did say that. So I looked at Firewalk's website because I wasn't familiar with the studio, and they did say, I typed into Google what game has Firewalk made, and it came up Xbox, Call of Duty, Halo, and these other games, but not knowing that they had talent pulled from studios that worked on these games. So yes, definitely granted. Sorry for the misinformation. Sorry. Sony isn't taking anything from these other consoles with or without the acquisitions, and if they do, it is temporary, as well as agreed upon with that developer. All of their first-party IP are completely original, that they built from the ground up and made successful. This equally gives Microsoft or Nintendo an opportunity to strike the same deals with those same developers, either down the line or on a completely separate IP of theirs. This is no different from Microsoft striking the same type of deals for IPs like Stalker 2, Tomb Raider, DOA, or KOTOR. When Sony acquired Bungie, they didn't remove the Destiny franchise off Xbox or gave them some finite time to have it. If ever Bungie makes a Destiny IP, rather that be Destiny 3 or Destiny 10, Xbox will get that IP, because unlike Microsoft, Sony are confident in making their own new IP. And I think this is where the disconnect starts to show. I don't care if Destiny or Sony makes this a Sony exclusive. I don't care about that. If it's their IP, they should be able to do whatever they want with it. You know what I mean? So, and same goes for Xbox. And if they were if they were that confident in their own IP, they wouldn't be railing so hard against Microsoft to share the IPs that they would buy fair and square. Microsoft are taking IP that were already going to their platform and calling them first party exclusives, as if they had anything to do with the success of those IP. This acquisition has been really mainstream. I doubt anyone who would consider them Xbox made these popular and these are Xbox games. They would be if the acquisition went through, just technically, but so what? So what? All they did was remove their leading competitor off the list to get those IP, but then tell you 150 million gamers will benefit with no one being left out. Really? That sounds a lot like they're taking away choice. That is not competing. That is pure laziness. And yes, I 100% agree with you. This takes away the choice from consumers also. So instead of you being able to buy a PlayStation or buy an Xbox and enjoy those games, you would have to go either or, right? And I 100% agree with you, but I'm torn between, these businesses operating how they want to, as long as it's in the realm of the law, and, customers winning out ultimately. Now, I'm always in favor of the customer, but I don't believe that that the IPs that Activision has would dictate whether someone buys an Xbox. I believe Sony has first party. I think all of their games are, I hate to say this, superior to Xbox. So I bought a PS5 because I love their games. It wasn't because of, any particular third-party studio or publisher. It was because of their in-house material. That's why I bought a PS5, right? And I'm not sure, and I believe that anyone who buys an Xbox or buys a PS5, they're buying them for the stories that they tell in that game, not because of the indie studios that they might work with, or the second party, third party, any of that. So if you bought an Xbox, you bought it for Halo. You know what I mean? Or Gears of War. And if you bought a PS5, you bought it for God of War. You bought it for Horizon Zero Dawn. You bought it for Uncharted. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. And I know this is dragging on long. I'll try to finish it up here soon. Now, don't get this confused. I'm not saying Microsoft can't buy a publisher, right? They very well can. But my goodness, if you're going to buy one, make a new IP that isn't attached to your competitor's platform. What they are currently doing doesn't make Xbox better. All that does is kill the industry at Microsoft, as Microsoft runs their IP into the ground because they don't want to put in the work like Sony or Nintendo. Just about every first-party IP Xbox, aside from a small few, were they IP that were on another system. I didn't get that last part. And just to address this, right? I truly believe that if this acquisition were to go through, I don't think that it would take that much market share away from Sony, because of Sony, the way Sony runs things. I do believe that they could compete on that level, even if they buy a publisher as big as Activision. I do believe that Sony could come, go to their studios and make something just as popular. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong on that. Go ahead and let me know what you think about the CMA. But go ahead and let me know what you think about the CMA's decision. Do you agree or disagree? Leave that in the comments. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for stopping by. Long video, I know. Sorry about that. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget to share it out. There should be another video popping up. And in the meantime, keep it casual. Peace.